The alien queen, betrayed and bleeding, whispered, "Human, you must not handle me." Eli Carter had been flying through the cold, empty stretches of space for hours. The faint hum of his small salvage ship was the only companion to the endless stars outside the viewport. His job was simple, at least in theory. Search for abandoned ships, old wrecks, and anything valuable that the larger corporations might overlook. In the vast darkness between colonies, most humans either worked for profit or went mad in the silence. Eli had chosen the first, but sometimes, even he wondered about the cost of endless isolation. That day, as his ship drifted near the edge of a disputed sector, something unusual appeared on the scanner. A massive vessel, dark and jagged, floated silently, seemingly untouched by any of the recent skirmishes in the area. Its hull was scarred with deep gouges, some glowing faintly with residual energy. It wasn't like anything Eli had ever seen. Military ships had clean lines, commercial ships had smooth curves. This vessel was wild, alien, and clearly ancient. Curiosity, more than greed, pushed him toward it. Docking with the derelict was easier than expected. Its docking bay doors were open, or perhaps destroyed. Inside, the corridors were dimly lit with a faint, pulsing glow. The air inside was thick and cold, with a smell that reminded Eli of old metal and burnt circuits. As he moved carefully through the ship, his pulse quickened. He had entered countless abandoned stations before, but this was different. It felt alive in a way he couldn't explain, as if the walls themselves were watching him. The first signs of life came suddenly. A muffled sound echoed down the corridor, a soft, painful groan. Eli froze, listening. It was not mechanical, it was biological. He followed the sound cautiously until he reached a large chamber at the center of the ship. And then he saw her. She was unlike any being he had ever encountered. Her skin shimmered faintly with colors that shifted as she moved. Her form was elegant and tall, yet clearly strong, shaped like nothing from human biology. But what drew Eli's attention most was the unmistakable signs of injury. Blood, dark and thick, smeared her armor like exoskeleton, and deep gashes ran across her limbs. She was chained to a massive support beam, her wings folded awkwardly against her back, torn and battered. Eli stepped closer, his hands raised slightly. The moment he did, she opened her eyes. They were deep, almost liquid pools of violet that seemed to pierce right through him. There was pain, yes, but also something else. An intelligence, sharp and calculating, and a warning he felt even before she spoke. "Human," her voice was low, almost a whisper, carrying across the room without effort. "You must not handle me." Eli's brow furrowed. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, his voice steady despite the sudden adrenaline in his veins. I can help." The Queen's gaze softened slightly, though she didn't move. "You don't understand. If you touch me, it could." She paused, her eyes flicking toward the chains and the blood. "It could destroy you." Eli took a step closer, cautiously. "I've handled dangerous things before." "I'm still here." His eyes scanned her injuries. He could see that some wounds were fresh, others were deep, gnawed at by something not entirely mechanical. Her pain was real. Compassion, something he had learned to suppress during long solo missions, surged within him. "He couldn't leave her here to die. Trust is dangerous," she said softly, almost mournfully. "But I have no choice." Careful not to touch her directly, Eli started examining the chains and the mechanisms holding her. He recognized some of the technology as alien, but not entirely beyond human understanding. Using tools from his ship and some improvised methods, he began the slow process of loosening the bindings. The Queen's eyes never left him, studying every move. Each time a link fell away, she flinched, not from pain but from fear, fear of what might happen if a human made a mistake. "Why are you helping me?" she asked finally, her voice a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Because it's the right thing," Eli replied simply. "No one deserves to be left like this." There was silence, heavy and tense. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Slowly, the chains loosened enough for her to sit upright, though the effort was clearly painful. Eli offered his hand as a gesture, not knowing if she could or would take it. After a long moment, she did, not in the way a human would, but by lightly brushing her clawed fingers against his. It was a delicate contact, enough to transfer some of her energy into a form of communication humans rarely understood. A pulse of gratitude, fear, and warning traveled from her to him. "I was betrayed," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly, "by those I trusted most. My council, they wanted me dead. They took everything from me, my throne, my fleet, everything. Eli listened, quietly absorbing the weight of her words. He knew betrayal, though not on this scale. He also knew that in space, power was everything. The larger an empire, the more dangerous the politics. And here, in the quiet and darkness, he realized that the queen was not just a victim. She was a leader, a figure of immense importance whose enemies would not stop until she was completely destroyed. "Why did they leave you here?" he asked. "Why not finish it?" "They underestimated me," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "They thought isolation would weaken me. They did not count on someone like you." Eli felt a strange warmth at her words, though he didn't entirely understand why. "Then let's get you out of here," he said. "We'll find a safe place, somewhere they won't follow." The queen's gaze softened again, but this time it carried a note of warning. "You do not understand. My enemies are relentless. They will follow. They have resources you cannot imagine." "I've survived worse," Eli said with a grin, even as he assessed the situation. It was a lie in many ways, but the confidence gave both of them a small comfort. He began looking around for anything that could serve as a temporary shield or a mobile escape pod. The ship was unstable. Power fluctuations caused parts of the floor to shudder and sparks to fly. Every step was dangerous, yet he moved carefully, guided by both instinct and the Queen's subtle suggestions. For hours he worked. He repaired minor breaches in the ship's hull, rerouted power to stabilize weak corridors, and carefully freed her from the remaining restraints. She moved slowly, but every gesture was precise, controlled. Eli noticed the way she analyzed the environment. Her intelligence, even in pain, was unparalleled. He realized that despite her vulnerability, she was still a strategist, still a leader, still someone who could command entire fleets if given the chance. By the time the first light of a nearby star glinted off the ship's outer hull, they had made a rudimentary path to an escape shuttle. Eli guided the Queen inside, and she barely reacted to the small cabin's tight quarters. Instead, she focused on monitoring the sensors and assessing their situation, her mind already working 3 steps ahead. "Name?" Eli asked cautiously. She hesitated. "Call me Elara." "Elara," he repeated. The name felt heavy with importance. "Well, Elara, we're not safe yet. But we will be, I promise." Elara's eyes studied him, and for a brief moment the warning in her gaze softened into something else, a cautious trust. "Do not mistake trust for safety, human. One mistake, and not just you, but the life around you will pay." "I understand," Eli said, "but I'm willing to risk it. We'll make it through." As they lifted off the derelict ship, Elara's voice broke the quiet hum of the shuttle. "You are unlike your kind, human, reckless yet compassionate. Most would have fled or ignored me." "Why not you?" Eli shrugged, though he knew the answer. "Because someone had to do it, and because maybe humans are better than we give ourselves credit for." Elara studied him in silence, as though trying to understand this strange species that had survived against odds far greater than most could imagine. Outside the shuttle, the derelict loomed in the darkness, silent and abandoned. But inside, something new was forming, a fragile alliance, an understanding between human ingenuity and alien majesty. For Eli, the stars no longer felt empty. They held possibilities, dangers, and perhaps destiny. For Elara, the human before her represented something she had never considered. Not a tool, not a soldier, not a pawn, but a being capable of courage and loyalty, qualities her own kind often lacked in abundance. And as the shuttle slipped into the black of space, carrying them away from betrayal and death, both knew that the journey ahead would be dangerous, unpredictable, and nothing like either of them had experienced before. Yet for the first time, hope glimmered amidst the cold void. The warning still lingered in the air. "You must not handle me." But Eli had already done so, in more ways than he could have imagined. He had touched her trust, her survival, and unknowingly the first thread of a bond that could change the galaxy. The shuttle floated silently through the empty stretches of space, the stars stretching into lines outside the viewport as if the universe itself were holding its breath. Inside, Eli Carter worked quietly, monitoring the ship's systems while Elara remained seated, her wounded form still fragile. She had not said much since leaving the derelict, but her sharp eyes constantly scanned the instruments, analyzing every flicker, every signal. Eli felt a strange mixture of tension and curiosity. The human mind was built for understanding, for solving problems, but this situation tested even his limits. The alien sitting beside him was unlike any species he had encountered. Her intelligence radiated in every careful movement, in every calculation of risk. He had freed her from certain death, yet he knew the danger was far from over. The silence was broken when a soft ping echoed from the sensor console. Eli jumped slightly and Ilara's head snapped toward the screen. "They're close," she whispered, her voice taut with warning. "They know I survived. They will come for me." Eli frowned, glancing at the display. It showed multiple contacts moving at high speed, their shapes unfamiliar but unmistakably hostile. "How fast?" he asked. "Faster than anything you've faced," she said. "Faster than any human vessel. They will not stop." Eli swallowed hard. The odds were against them, but he refused to panic. Panic solved nothing. He quickly scanned the shuttle's storage compartments, pulling out a small assortment of devices he had salvaged over months of work. Some were tools, some were makeshift weapons, and a few were pieces of alien tech he had barely learned to operate. Improvisation would be their only chance. "Can you fight?" he asked her, keeping his voice low. "I am capable," Ilara replied, her gaze cold but calculating. "But my strength is unpredictable here. Close contact with a human could trigger complications." Eli nodded, understanding the warning. He would not touch her unnecessarily. They had to rely on strategy, speed, and surprise. The first wave of attackers arrived sooner than expected. The sensors lit up with dozens of fast-moving ships, cutting through the darkness with deadly precision. Eli's heart pounded as he pushed the shuttle into evasive maneuvers. He had no fighter training, but instinct guided his hands, twisting levers, engaging thrusters, and weaving through asteroid fields scattered across their path. Ilara watched, her body tense, but she did not panic. She whispered instructions, subtle adjustments to their trajectory, noting weak points in the enemy ship's patterns. Her mind worked like a supercomputer, predicting the attackers' movements before they even made them. Eli realized that her warning, about not handling her, was not just about physical contact. Her abilities, her intelligence, her very presence could alter outcomes in ways humans could not predict. Hours passed as they dodged and weaved through space, each maneuver bringing them closer to temporary safety. Yet the Queen's injuries slowed them. Eli noticed how she flinched when the shuttle jolted sharply, how her breathing grew heavier with every sudden move. He realized that survival depended not just on avoiding the enemy, but also on keeping her stable and unharmed. "Eli," she said finally, her voice soft but urgent, "you need to understand. My enemies will not stop at mere pursuit. They have ways to track life energy to find me wherever I go. We cannot outrun them forever." Eli's mind raced. He considered options, each more dangerous than the last. "Then we make a plan," he said. "We don't just run. We fight smart, we use their predictability against them, and we find a place where they cannot follow." Ilara's eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light of the shuttle, studied him. "You are reckless, but there is logic in what you propose. Very well. But you must follow instructions without hesitation." Together, they devised a strategy. Eli would lead the shuttle through an old debris field, one that no maps recorded. The jagged remains of destroyed stations, satellites, and ship fragments would serve as natural obstacles. Ilara would guide him, her eyes tracking the enemy ships even as she stayed confined to the cabin. Every turn, every evasive maneuver was dictated by her calculation and his hands' instinctive reactions. The first encounter was brutal. Enemy ships struck with coordinated precision, and one clipped the shuttle's rear thruster, sending them spinning into a field of drifting metal. Eli gritted his teeth, twisting controls, dodging the jagged wreckage. Sparks flew as the shuttle scraped past massive fragments, the metal screeching against the hull. Ilara's hand hovered near her chest, as if drawing energy inward, and for a moment Eli thought she might intervene. But she did not. She whispered tactical suggestions instead, and together they navigated the chaos. By the time the final attackers were momentarily lost in the debris, Eli was exhausted. Sweat ran down his face, and the shuttle's hull bore scars from close calls. Ilara, though injured, remained composed, her eyes sharp as ever. "You have skill," she said quietly, almost with respect. "Most humans would have been destroyed long ago, but skill alone will not save us. We must find allies." Eli nodded, though the thought of contacting anyone else in the galaxy was daunting. Humans were not universally trusted among the stars, and alien civilizations were often more dangerous than the enemies they had just evaded. Yet he had to try. He pulled up a map of nearby unclaimed systems, marking potential safe zones where they could repair the shuttle and plan their next move. As they navigated toward one of the isolated systems, Eli finally allowed himself to ask the question that had been pressing in his mind. "Why did your council betray you?" Elara's expression darkened. "Power," she said simply. "Fear of my decisions, fear of my strength. They believed a weaker leader would serve their ambitions better. They conspired with external forces to remove me permanently. Every decision I made that threatened them was used as justification for betrayal." Eli was silent for a moment. Politics among humans could be ruthless, but this level of betrayal was on another scale entirely. "And they left you here bleeding and chained, thinking no one would find you?" "Yes," she replied. "They underestimated the universe's unpredictability. They assumed no human or any being would interfere. They were wrong." Eli felt a surge of pride and responsibility. Somehow, humanity's curiosity and empathy had placed him in the center of this conflict. He was no longer just a salvage pilot. He was a protector, a problem solver, and potentially the key to restoring a galaxy-shaking figure to power. The following days were tense. Eli repaired parts of the shuttle while Elara slowly recovered. They shared little in words at first, relying instead on a mutual understanding of survival. Every sound outside the hull, every flicker on the sensors was analyzed. Each movement required strategy, each decision carried risk. Yet amidst the tension, a subtle bond formed. Elara began to share fragments of knowledge, information about her empire, her culture, and the technologies humans could barely comprehend. Eli shared what he knew of human capabilities, improvisation, and unpredictability. One evening, as the shuttle drifted near the edge of a nebula, Eli noticed that Elara seemed different. She was calmer, her gaze less sharp with suspicion, her breathing steady. He realized that their survival together, the trust he had shown, and the careful respect for her warnings had begun to bridge the gap between species. "You have saved me more than once," she said quietly. "And yet, I must warn you again, my enemies are relentless. One day they will find us, and that day will not allow mistakes." "I understand," Eli replied, "but until that day we survive, and when that day comes we'll be ready." Elara's gaze lingered on him, studying him as one might study an unpredictable variable in a complex equation. "Humans," she murmured, "so resilient, so determined, perhaps more than I expected." The bond between them grew, subtle but undeniable. Trust was fragile, yet it was forming. Eli realized that their partnership was not just about survival, it was about potential. With careful planning, courage, and ingenuity, they could outsmart enemies who considered them insignificant. Humans, in all their imperfection and unpredictability, could tip the balance where even the most powerful aliens might fail. As they prepared to navigate the next stretch of space, Eli looked out at the stars, their cold light reflecting on the shuttle's hull. Somewhere out there, enemies waited, dangerous, fast, and merciless. Yet for the first time in days, he felt hope. Not reckless hope, but calculated hope born from understanding, empathy, and the strange alliance forming between human and alien queen. Elara's presence was a constant reminder of the stakes. She was powerful, intelligent, and vulnerable all at once. And as much as she warned him not to handle her, he understood that touching her trust and supporting her survival was already a bond stronger than any enemy could predict. Hours later, the shuttle emerged from the nebula, the glowing gases painting the hull in colors that seemed alive. Eli scanned the sensors, noticing a faint anomaly, a hidden signal, faint but persistent, possibly a trap or a clue. He looked at Elara. "It seems they've left a trail," he said. She studied the display carefully. "Yes, a test to see if we are clever enough to survive it. We are, but the path ahead will only grow more dangerous. Be ready, human." "I'm ready," Eli replied, gripping the controls. In the quiet hum of the shuttle, among the stars that stretched endlessly into darkness, the human and the alien queen prepared for the next stage of their journey. One fueled by trust, ingenuity, and the unyielding drive to survive. And somewhere deep in the void, a galaxy waited, unaware that the smallest choices, human courage, alien intelligence, could change the fate of countless worlds. The shuttle moved carefully through the uncharted region of space, the dim glow of distant stars casting long shadows. Across the hull, Eli Carter's hands were steady on the controls, though his mind raced with calculations and possibilities. Every scanner ping, every flicker of energy, was a potential threat. He had faced danger before, but nothing like the persistent intelligence tracking them now. Whoever or whatever had betrayed Elara was relentless, and Eli knew that any misstep could end their journey or their lives. Elara sat across from him, her body still recovering but her mind sharp and active. She leaned forward slightly, eyes fixed on the displays, scanning every signal with a precision that left Eli in awe. Despite her injuries, there was a presence about her that demanded attention. Even wounded, she exuded authority, intelligence, and power. Eli had come to realize that her warnings about not handling her were more than caution. They were survival, strategy, and understanding rolled into one. "They're not giving up," she said quietly. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of warning. "They are sending more ships, faster, stronger. They have learned from our maneuvers." Eli nodded, adjusting the shuttle's trajectory slightly. "Then we'll keep learning too. We adapt. That's what humans do." Ilara's eyes flicked to him, almost like she was analyzing his very being. "You are unpredictable. That may be our advantage." They spent the next several hours in tense silence, maneuvering through fields of asteroids and debris left over from ancient conflicts. The environment was chaotic, perfect for hiding, perfect for ambushing enemies. Eli piloted with precision, dodging jagged rocks, spinning past floating wrecks, and using the unpredictable terrain as cover. Ilara provided tactical guidance, noting weak points in the enemy's approach patterns. Suddenly, the sensors picked up a large object moving at high velocity, a capital ship unlike anything Eli had ever seen. It was sleek, dark, and massive, cutting through the void like a predator. Eli's stomach tightened. "That's not a scout, that's a hunter." Ilara's wings, though folded and damaged, twitched slightly. "They underestimated me once. They will not again. We must be careful." Eli's mind raced. There was no way to outrun such a vessel with a shuttle. The odds were impossible. He glanced at Ilara. "What do we do?" She studied the trajectory, analyzing distances and velocities. "We use their speed against them. The debris field ahead, it is chaotic. They will have difficulty adjusting their trajectory quickly. We can lure them in, create an opening." Eli swallowed hard but nodded. "Then let's make it happen." As they entered the dense debris field, the shuttle bounced and jolted violently, each collision narrowly avoided by Eli's quick reflexes. The massive hunter ship followed, its advanced sensors struggling to track them through the unpredictable terrain. Sparks flew from the shuttle as it scraped past jagged edges and metal groaned under stress. Eli gritted his teeth, steering with every ounce of concentration he had. Ilara leaned closer, her eyes flashing with intensity. "Now, draw them closer." Eli banked sharply, leading the hunter ship into a narrow canyon formed by the debris. The massive vessel, unable to maneuver as quickly, clipped several floating fragments. Explosions rippled across its hull. Eli used the moment to accelerate through a small opening, leaving the larger ship struggling behind. Breathing heavily, he glanced at Ilara. "That should buy us some time." She nodded slightly. "Time is temporary. They will adapt, and they will not forgive failure." For the next several hours, they navigated cautiously, using the debris as cover while repairing minor damage to the shuttle. The silence between them was thick but not uncomfortable. A bond had formed, a silent understanding that each was relying on the other for survival. Eli finally broke the quiet. "Why did they leave you alive in the first place?" Ilara's gaze darkened. "They feared my death might spark rebellion. They hoped my suffering would weaken those loyal to me. They underestimated the resilience of both my people and humans." Eli nodded slowly. "Resilience, that's what keeps us alive." Ilara tilted her head, studying him. "Yes, and you are resilient human, perhaps too much so. You risk everything, yet you endure." They moved deeper into the debris field, the enemy hunter still in pursuit, but struggling to match their evasive tactics. Eli had begun to understand Ilara's strategic mind, how she could predict movements, calculate risks, and plan several steps ahead. Her intelligence was not just advanced, it was brilliant, and he marveled at how much humans could learn from a mind like hers. Suddenly, a warning signal flashed across the console. "Incoming vessel," Eli said sharply. A smaller, more agile ship had appeared, moving in from a different vector. "They're flanking us." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Then we must split their attention, use their arrogance against them." Eli adjusted the controls, weaving the shuttle unpredictably through the field. He led the flanking ship into a cluster of massive debris. The ship was fast, but it could not match the chaotic movements of the shuttle. It collided with a floating fragment, sending a shockwave that rocked the nearby vessels. Elara's voice was calm but precise. "Now reverse course. Lead the main hunter into the trap." Eli obeyed, steering sharply in a reverse maneuver that forced the massive hunter to follow through a narrow corridor of debris. Sparks and shrapnel flew as the capital ship struggled to avoid collisions. Eli's heart raced, but he did not falter. Every instinct, every skill was focused on keeping them alive. The maneuver worked. The hunter was slowed, damaged by the collisions, and forced to retreat temporarily. Eli exhaled slowly, glancing at Elara. "You did well," she said quietly, though her eyes betrayed a hint of admiration. "Most humans would not have survived this long." Eli smiled faintly, though he was still tense. "We make a good team." For the next few hours, they moved cautiously, repairing minor damage and scanning for signs of additional threats. Elara shared fragments of knowledge, explaining how her council had conspired against her, manipulating fleets and creating false records to make it appear as if she had failed. The more Eli listened, the more he realized the depth of the betrayal. Her enemies had not just wanted her dead, they wanted her erased, forgotten, and replaced with leaders who served their ambition. "They believe fear controls loyalty," Elara said softly. "But loyalty comes from respect, from trust. That is what they do not understand." Eli nodded, "And trust is something humans understand well. That's why I'm here." The bond between them strengthened as they shared strategies, stories, and moments of quiet reflection. Eli realized that their survival depended not only on skill and intelligence, but also on understanding and trust. They were no longer just human and alien. They were a team, bound by shared danger and mutual respect. As they approached a dense asteroid cluster, Elara's eyes flicked to the sensors. "They are regrouping," she warned. "A larger force approaches. We will have to fight or we will be cornered." Eli's mind raced. The shuttle was not equipped for a direct fight against a fleet. They needed strategy, cunning, and precise timing. "Then we make our stand," he said. "We use the environment and we use their overconfidence against them." Hours passed as they prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Eli modified the shuttle's systems, turning parts of the hull into improvised traps and defenses. Elara guided him, calculating trajectories, predicting enemy patterns, and preparing him for every possible scenario. Finally, the enemy arrived. A fleet of sleek, deadly ships emerged from the darkness, their weapons primed, their movements coordinated. Eli's heart pounded, but he felt a strange calm. He and Elara had survived impossible odds before. They could do it again. The first attack came swiftly. Laser beams streaked across space, narrowly missing the shuttle. Eli twisted controls, dodging and weaving, while Elara's voice guided him with precision. They led the attackers into the asteroid cluster, using debris as cover and forcing the enemy ships to collide or hesitate. For hours, they danced through the chaos, using strategy, improvisation, and their combined intelligence to survive. The enemy was powerful, but they underestimated the bond between human ingenuity and alien brilliance. Every move Eli made was informed by Elara's calculations. Every prediction she made was tested and refined in real time. By the end of the engagement, several enemy ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. The shuttle was battered but functional. Eli exhaled, sweat dripping from his brow, and glanced at Elara. "You survived," she said softly, almost a whisper. "We survived together." Eli smiled faintly. "Yes, together." For the first time since their escape, they allowed themselves a moment of quiet relief. The stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport, silent witnesses to their triumph. But both knew the journey was far from over. The enemies would return, stronger and more determined. Yet in that moment, Eli realized something profound. Humans with courage, ingenuity, and empathy could stand against even the most formidable adversaries. And with Elara by his side, a being of unmatched intelligence and power, they could face anything the galaxy threw at them. As the shuttle drifted through the asteroid field, carrying the human and the alien queen further into unknown space, a sense of purpose settled over them. They were no longer fleeing blindly. They were preparing, learning, and growing stronger. And somewhere in the vast expanse of the stars, the galaxy was beginning to take notice of a new alliance. one that could change the balance of power forever. Eli Carter gripped the controls of the shuttle as they approached the rebel stronghold. The massive station floated in orbit around a barren planet, its dark silhouette broken by sharp edges and jagged antennas. Every scanner ping and every sensor reading confirmed that they were walking, or flying, into danger. Ilara's council had betrayed her, and this was the center of their operations. Eli felt a weight pressing on his chest, but he forced himself to focus. Panic would accomplish nothing. Ilara sat across from him, her wings still folded tightly against her back, but her posture straightened with determination. Her violet eyes glimmered with intensity. "This is where it begins," she said quietly. "They will not surrender, they will fight. And yet we have the advantage." Eli glanced at her, trying to hide his unease. "Advantage? Humans are unpredictable," Ilara said, "and you have learned from every move we have faced so far. They will expect caution, routine, obedience. But we do not follow their expectations." Eli nodded slowly. Over the past days, he had learned to follow her guidance and improvise his own instincts. Together, they had survived impossible odds, outsmarted faster and stronger enemies, and built a fragile but unbreakable trust. Now the final confrontation loomed. As the shuttle approached the station, sensors lit up with dozens of enemy ships ready to intercept. The Council had anticipated Ilara's return and prepared for her arrival. Eli's stomach tightened, but he forced himself to steady his hands. He had come this far, and he would not fail. Ilara studied the displays, her mind working faster than Eli could follow. "We will not attack directly," she said. "The station's defenses are strong. We must enter quietly through the side docking bay." "They will underestimate this approach." Eli adjusted the shuttle's trajectory, weaving through asteroid debris and avoiding patrols. Every movement had to be precise. One mistake, and they would be destroyed before they even reached the station. The tension in the cabin was thick, but both of them worked in silence, each trusting the other's skills completely. When they reached the side docking bay, the shuttle's sensors detected a minimal security presence. Eli exhaled quietly. "We made it this far, now we go in." The docking bay was cold, metallic, and quiet. The doors opened with a hiss and they slipped inside. The interior of the station was dimly lit, filled with shadows and strange machinery. Ilara guided Eli down corridors with careful precision, avoiding security patrols and automated sentries. Her knowledge of the station's layout was impeccable, a testament to her years as a ruler and strategist. As they moved deeper into the station, Eli noticed that the tension in Ilara's body had increased. She paused at a junction, her head tilting slightly. "They are aware of our presence," she whispered. "They have dispatched a unit to intercept us. We must act quickly." Eli's heart pounded, but he nodded. He had learned to trust her instincts, and he would follow her lead. They moved swiftly, using shadows and machinery for cover, until they reached a large chamber where the council members awaited. The council had underestimated them. They had expected fear, hesitation, and surrender. Instead, they found a human and an alien queen standing side by side, prepared for the confrontation. The council members' eyes widened in shock and disbelief. "You are alive," one of them hissed, a malevolent gleam in his eyes. "Impossible, we left you to die." Ilara stepped forward, her voice calm but filled with authority. "You underestimated me," she said, "and you underestimated the human beside me." Eli stood slightly behind her, ready to act on her command. He felt a surge of pride and determination. They had survived the impossible, and now they had the chance to reclaim what was taken from her. The council attacked swiftly, using energy weapons and mechanized drones. Eli and Ilara moved in perfect synchronization. Eli dodged, ducked, and improvised, using the environment to his advantage. Ilara, despite her injuries, moved with deadly precision, her abilities amplified by careful control. Together, they were unstoppable. Eli realized that this battle was not just physical. It was a test of strategy, intelligence, and trust. Every move counted. Every decision could change the outcome. He relied on Ilara's guidance while adding his own improvisation. They created diversions, trapped enemies in corridors, and used the station's own machinery against them. Hours passed as they fought their way through the council's forces. The chamber was a chaotic symphony of sparks, energy beams, and metal clashing against metal. Yet amidst the chaos, Eli noticed something remarkable. The human ingenuity he had relied on, the ability to improvise, adapt, and take risks, Combined with Elara's intelligence and power created a force the council had never anticipated. Finally, they reached the central chamber where the head of the council waited. The leader was imposing, radiating authority and malice. "You should have died," he said, his voice cold and commanding. "Now you will pay for your defiance." Elara stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "It is you who will pay," she said. "Your treachery ends today." The leader lunged, and the battle became personal. Elara moved with controlled power, striking with precision and grace. Eli supported her, using his quick thinking and agility to intercept attacks and protect her from harm. They were a team, human and alien, trust and courage working in perfect harmony. During the confrontation, Eli realized something important. Elara's warning about not handling her was not just about physical contact. It was about understanding, respect, and timing. Her full power was dangerous, unpredictable, and could harm those unprepared. By following her guidance, trusting her, and acting with caution, Eli became a partner rather than a liability. The battle reached its climax as the council leader tried a desperate attack, using the station's systems to gain an advantage. Elara anticipated his move, and with Eli's quick intervention, they turned the systems against him. Energy surged through the chamber, and the council leader was finally defeated. His ambitions ended. Elara stood tall, her body trembling slightly from exertion but her eyes shining with triumph. Eli approached cautiously. "Is it over?" he asked. "For now," she said. "But the galaxy will not forget this day. My enemies will remember who survived and who stood with me." Eli nodded. "We make a good team." Elara's gaze softened, a hint of gratitude and respect in her eyes. "You are more than I expected, human. Your courage, your ingenuity, it has saved me more than once." Eli smiled faintly. "And you've taught me more than I imagined possible." Together we survived. That's what counts. They moved through the station, securing it and ensuring that any remaining threats were neutralized. Eli repaired damaged systems, guided by Elara's instructions, while she restored control over key operations. The once oppressive environment of the rebel stronghold began to feel like a reclaimed home. As they worked, Eli noticed the subtle changes in Elara. Her injuries were healing, her posture straightening, and her presence exuded renewed authority. She was no longer the betrayed, bleeding queen from the derelict ship. She was a leader restored, a figure of power and wisdom. And through it all, Eli realized that humanity, curiosity, ingenuity, courage had played a critical role in this restoration. Finally, as the station's system stabilized and the last remnants of the council were dealt with, Elara turned to Eli. "The next steps will be difficult," she said. "The galaxy will know of this day and forces will challenge us. But for now, we have won a victory that cannot be undone." Eli looked at her, pride swelling in his chest. "And we'll face whatever comes next together." She studied him, her expression unreadable for a moment. "Together," she agreed. For the first time since their escape from the derelict ship, Eli allowed himself a moment of quiet relief. They had faced betrayal, pursued by relentless enemies, and confronted impossible odds. And yet, through trust, courage, and human ingenuity, they had prevailed. As they prepared the shuttle to leave the station, Eli realized that their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers and opportunities. But one truth was clear. Humans, with courage, adaptability, and determination, could stand against even the most powerful adversaries. And when allied with intelligence and wisdom like Elara's, they could change the course of history. The stars outside stretched endlessly, a reminder of the challenges ahead. Yet in that vast expanse, Eli felt hope. Not reckless hope, but the kind that comes from experience, trust, and the knowledge that humanity could endure, adapt, and triumph where others might fail. And as the shuttle prepared to lift off, carrying both human and alien queen into the next stage of their journey, Eli knew that the galaxy had yet to see the full measure of their alliance. Together, they would face the coming storms, overcome impossible odds, and prove that courage, intelligence, and trust could reshape the fate of worlds. The shuttle glided through the dark expanse of space, carrying Eli Carter and Elara toward the capital of her empire. The stars stretched endlessly around them, silent witnesses to the triumphs and dangers that had marked their journey. Eli had long ago learned that victory was only temporary in the galaxy. Yet, for the first time in days, he allowed himself a sense of purpose beyond survival. They were going to reclaim what had been stolen, restore justice, and face the challenges that lay ahead together. Elara sat across from him, her body still healing but her presence commanding. Her violet eyes reflected determination and intelligence, a sharp contrast to the vulnerability she had shown on the derelict ship. "We are close," she said softly, her voice calm but firm. "The Council remnants know we approach. They will attempt to resist. We must be prepared." Eli nodded. "Then we'll be ready. We've come this far, haven't we?" She gave a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Yes, and it is thanks to your courage, human. Do not underestimate the role you have played in this." For the past days, they had trained, repaired, and strategized. Eli had adapted to Elara's alien technologies, learned to anticipate her calculations, and understood the rhythm of her thinking. Their partnership had grown beyond necessity. It had become instinct. Where she saw patterns and probabilities, he saw opportunities to improvise. Together, they were unstoppable. As they approached the capital, the city-sized station loomed ahead, dark and foreboding. Its sharp angles and towering structures were a reminder of the Empire's former grandeur and the betrayal that had tainted its halls. Sensors indicated dozens of patrol ships and automated defenses, all active and ready. Eli's pulse quickened. The challenge ahead was unlike anything they had faced before. Elara studied the readings carefully. "We will enter through the orbital control station," she said. "It is less guarded, and from there we can regain command of the main defenses. Once we control the systems, the Council will have no choice but to face me directly." Eli adjusted the shuttle's trajectory, weaving through asteroid debris near the station to avoid early detection. Every movement had to be precise. He glanced at Elara. "Do you think they'll surrender once we're inside?" Elara shook her head. "No, they are arrogant. They believe they are untouchable. They underestimate the loyalty of those who serve me and the resourcefulness of humans. They will resist, but that is acceptable. Resistance will expose their weaknesses." The shuttle slipped through a narrow channel leading to the orbital control station. Eli maneuvered carefully, avoiding automated turrets and security drones. The tension was palpable, but he moved with focus, guided by both instinct and Elara's precise instructions. When they docked, the station was eerily quiet. The dim lighting and silent corridors were a stark contrast to the chaos they had faced earlier. Elara led, her steps controlled and deliberate. Eli followed closely, alert to any movement. The first encounter came quickly. Patrol units moved to intercept them, but Eli and Elara were ready. He used makeshift devices to disable security drones, while Elara's precision and strength neutralized human-sized adversaries. Each movement was calculated, efficient, and devastating. Hours passed as they advanced deeper into the station. Eli marveled at Elara's ability to remain calm under pressure, even while injured. Her strategic mind anticipated every move, every trap. Yet he realized that her trust in him had grown. She allowed him to make decisions, to act on instinct, and together they complemented each other perfectly. Finally, they reached the central chamber, the seat of the Council's power. The leader of the Council stood waiting, flanked by advisors and security forces. His expression was a mixture of disbelief and anger. "You survived," he said, his voice cold. "Impossible, and you, human, you dare to challenge me?" Eli's hand rested lightly on the control panel of the shuttle's interface. "We've survived this far, and we're not done." Elara stepped forward, her presence commanding the room. "Your treachery ends today," she said, her voice steady and filled with authority. "You have underestimated me, underestimated loyalty, and underestimated human ingenuity. Now you face the consequences." The Council leader struck first, activating the station's defenses and summoning reinforcements. Energy beams cut across the chamber, and mechanized drones advanced. Eli and Elara moved with fluid coordination. He used his improvisation skills to redirect energy flows, disable drones, and create distractions. Elara's strikes were precise, controlled, and devastating, neutralizing threats before they could react. Despite their skill, the Council's forces were numerous and relentless. Eli realized that brute force alone would not succeed. They needed strategy. He scanned the chamber, looking for weaknesses. Overhead conduits, control panels, and energy lines provided opportunities. He signaled to Elara, and together they executed a plan. Eli triggered a series of energy surges, overloading sections of the station systems. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and chaos erupted among the Council's forces. Elara struck simultaneously, exploiting the confusion to reach the Council leader. He lunged toward her, but she anticipated every move, countering with precision and speed. "You cannot win," he spat, struggling against her. "This empire will always be mine." "Not when justice guides me," Elara replied. "Not when loyalty and courage matter more than fear and greed." With a final, decisive maneuver, she disarmed him, using his own systems against him. Eli assisted by locking down escape routes and securing critical control panels. The council leader was defeated, powerless, and exposed for his betrayal. Breathing heavily, Elara surveyed the chamber. "It is done," she said softly. "The council's treachery has ended. My empire is restored." Eli stepped closer, a mix of relief and admiration in his eyes. "You did it," he said. "Together we did it." She looked at him, her expression a mixture of gratitude and respect. "You are more than I expected, human. Your courage, intelligence, and determination have been essential. I would not have survived without you." Eli felt a warmth in his chest. "And you've taught me more than I imagined possible. Humans can adapt, improvise, and endure. Together, we're unstoppable." With the council defeated, Elara regained control over the station and began restoring order. Systems that had been sabotaged were repaired, communication networks re-established, and loyal forces reassured of their leader's return. Eli assisted where he could, using his knowledge of improvisation and human problem-solving to aid the process. As the station stabilized, Elara called a gathering of her loyalists. She addressed them with authority, grace, and clarity. "The betrayal we faced was deep, but it will not define us. Loyalty, courage, and trust have guided us through darkness. Together, we will rebuild stronger than ever." Eli watched as the alien leader, once betrayed and broken, now commanded respect and admiration. He realized that humanity had played a vital role in this restoration. Through courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to face impossible odds, humans could earn trust, influence outcomes, and stand as equals, even among the most advanced and powerful species in the galaxy. After the public address, Elara turned to Eli. "You have proven that humans are more capable than many of my people believed. Your presence has changed the outcome of history. I would like you to consider a new role." Eli raised an eyebrow. "A new role?" "Yes," she said. "An ambassador. One who represents humanity, who can advise, and who can ensure that trust and cooperation flourish between our species. Your courage and ingenuity make you uniquely suited for this task." Eli considered her words. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers and opportunities, but the thought of representing humanity, of bridging the gap between worlds, filled him with purpose. "I accept," he said finally. "I will do my best." Elara nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "Then together we will shape the future. Loyalty, courage, and trust will guide us, and humanity will have a place in this galaxy like no one has ever imagined." The days that followed were filled with rebuilding, planning, and preparation. Eli worked alongside Elara, learning about alien cultures, technologies, and strategies. He adapted human ingenuity to alien systems, solving problems that had stumped her advisors for years. Their partnership became legendary, a symbol of what could be achieved when courage and intelligence were combined. News of the restored queen and the human who aided her spread throughout the galaxy. Stories of their exploits reached distant systems, inspiring awe, respect, and admiration. Humans, once underestimated, were now recognized as resourceful, courageous, and capable of shaping galactic events. One evening, as the sun of a nearby planet reflected off the station's hull, Eli and Elara stood together, overlooking the galaxy they had helped shape. "We've come far," Eli said quietly. "Yes," Elara replied, "and there is still much to do. But together we will face whatever comes next. The galaxy will remember this day, not for betrayal, not for fear, but for courage, loyalty, and trust." Eli smiled. "Then let's make sure it does." And so, human and alien queen, bound by trust, courage, and respect, prepared for the next chapter. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but they had proven that even the smallest species could make the greatest difference. Humanity, unpredictable and ingenious, had earned its place among the stars. As the stars stretched endlessly around them, Eli knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had witnessed their alliance, their victory, and their courage. And somewhere in the infinite expanse, the future waited, bright, uncertain, and filled with endless possibilities. Together, they would face it all, proving that humanity, when guided by courage and wisdom, could stand against any threat, overcome any challenge, and rise as a force to be reckoned within the universe.